All right, and we are off into our inhale, exhale, sequencing, respiratory joys. Okay, so what I want you to have is those 2 blankets at the back, your bolster, and either another bolster under your knees or a set of blocks. Now the essential focus is that set of blocks is either, I'm liking this tilted experience. However, it will be a little bit of a time where you'll have to invent your best shape for what's called mountain brook. We're dreaming of an actual mountain brook now, but when you lie back, you want to find that the rib structure, depending on if you're using a round bolster or a flat, this one would be good with a round because I could curl my ribs over and back, but I'm actually going to work my flexibility of my rib cage. So when we're working the respiratory capacity, the importance is the flexibility in your spine. So we're going to work with lifting the diaphragm up and away from the abdominal organs quite a bit. So when you lower down, I want you to be a little bit cautious here of the neck. So I'm going to fold my upper blanket so I have a little more bulk under my head. So this whole transfer of awareness from my collar flesh, that is collar flesh to the arms, and the legs separated enough that I can achieve resting the weight of my hips into the floor. So with this emphasis, feel the shoulders motioning back, the spread of the arms open. And if you want to add a sandbag across the ribs, this is a good time to add it. Otherwise, the experience of viscerally manipulating these organs, right, in the lung tissue and preserving and restoring that space. So maybe adding things could be a little bit extra sensory in some ways right now. We'll even let go of the idea of the belt for the first minute here. Experience the hands relaxed. Use as much blanket under your head. That will help your spine adapt. Flexibility of the spine. Think of if we're doing a cat-cow sequence, you really are trying to articulate that arch. And isn't this the greatest place to do that? With something under you to actually place and kind of put a dent into that back space and open the ribs, the intercostals, the chest. The reason we have the knees slightly tilted up here is so that you get more arch through the spine and the ribs, right? It's a little more of this mountain brook. So grab your belt and let's get going. So hold on, so the hands are holding the belt behind you, opening out through the chest, and feel the shoulders access the circulation in the ribs. So some of this comes up for me as I'm in practice, my thoughts about it, but you might like to be in silence with it and feel the flow of your breath. Anytime it's too punctual in your spine, too much low back pressure, walk your feet in towards your seat and let go of the idea of using the blocks, okay? Having your seat on the floor is enough for most of us. It's a lot of arch. So with that flush of inhale, feel that slender experience of the torso, kind of the narrowing of the chamber. And then as you exhale, empty the lungs. Feel a strong hold of the belt. Maybe move the hands out a little farther and gather your attention on a slow breath. Not that it needs to be especially deep, the shape creates the depth. But consider how you could recover into your breathing muscles and energetically setting your intention for practice, perhaps something outside of your singular self towards others. Right, human or earth, whichever you're going to send an energy out towards. Yeah, consider the flex of your feet. So feel how even the base extremity has a hook at the heel, and how that position supports traction. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll separate from the hold of the belt. Walk the feet in. Now, if you have a bolster, what you'll do is you slide that out. Try to do as much from your supine space as possible versus cranking around. Do as much as you can from this back venue of awareness. And then I'll walk my feet in. I'm going to scoot a block and try to trap the block and then place it on its lowest setting under my buttock. Well, that's a relief, isn't it? It's almost a relief to the pelvis, and then starts to kind of restore that circulation. If your lower back quickly responds, okay, what we'll do is take a sandbag on the top of your thighs at your hip flexors and start to release. It would be dramatic to think you could release your psoas quickly, but we're moving the hip flexors so that as far as their experience has been thus far, has been hinging. So I want you to work your way towards lifting the ribs still, but have that descent of the sand on the thighs, and try to get your legs close together. Just give it a try. If it doesn't feel useful for your back, you can separate your feet. Okay, but get a feel as if you're trying to cross your big toes, okay? And then as you do that pattern with the legs, opens up through the back of the pelvis, the sacral bone, we're going to move our arms open, but this time from that outer flesh of the ribs wide, you're going to lift your arms up and cross the right arm over the left. Get the arms high crossing and intertwine the arms, moving the elbows towards your face, okay? So feel where the flesh is touching at the bolster, and if your head feels suspended too high at this point, you're used to this, you might be able to lower your blanket down, but if it's cozy, stay with it. Feel the arms trying to motion back towards your face and beyond. Elbows lower down. Switch the crossing by opening the heart. Then take the left arm and feel when the arms are straight-ish, and then when you're reaching across and really trying to hook at the elbows, intertwine the arms, and feel that feature of motioning them towards the back, towards your face, towards the space behind you, to the face place. Yeah, distribute the legs so they're more comfortable. If your feet do not have that natural desire to pivot in, you might take a stance so they're hips distance. Try to scrub the heels into the floor a little bit. Feel the foot flesh at the heel bone. Lifting the arms a little bit higher towards your face directionally. Feel that natural arch in the spine here. And as we start to unwind through the arm connection, I want you to stretch out through the chest finally with the experience of the back of your hands pressing. And feel if you can let the back of your hands press and the inner kind of the veins of that inner line of the arms, the sleeve,
Feel as if it's actually kind of curling and lifting up. And so instead of flattening the arms, you work with the touch of the back of the hands, feel the elbows bending, feel the lift of the rib cage. Like this is your back bend of choice today. Opening up the ribs, the intercostals, and starting that channel moving through the front ribs, and we'll start going into the sides. So let's slide the feet in. Keep the sand onto that front zone of the hip flexors, and get a feel when your back maybe presses a little bit more comfortably into its shape. Doesn't mean it's pushing in exactly to the bolster, but the back of your pelvis on the block. You know, feeling this bridge position. And then when I slide my hands down, I'm going to shift the sand over left. And then as I move my block, I want you to try to articulate this pattern. So we reach the block overhead. I still have my hips slightly up. Let it go. And then feel if you can combine your arms besides your head so they're close in. And then actually offer that rotation with your arms besides your head. So you're going to turn and then slip the arm between the bolster and the blankets and take a first take here. You know, when you're trying to practice something, you go the first take and see how it goes. So align the musculature here, kind of feel this. Okay. Now, if you have a couple bolsters, you will try to use two of them on this one. You'll have one that's underneath your rib cage and the other that's under your head, okay? That gives you just a little more density for the position. Now, if you have a ball or a block on the inside of the right leg, set that, give yourself some time if you're bolster orienting right now. But try to move this right leg back, okay? Again, this is take one. So we're going to try to swing that leg back and then feel where the ball or block would be set so that your hinge here is actually trying to lengthen. So instead of trying to hook and bend my knee, I'm simply trying to work on opposing reaches of these limbs. That being said, we've got our sand onto the side corridor, and then we have our blanket support or a bolster. I'm going to lower this blanket height so I have a little bit more stretch in my intercostals, right? So the lower I go. Now in the inhale, exhale series text, what this pose actually has is a little more rib height. That's why a higher bolster, or you could add a blanket on top of your bolster and get a little bit more, but you want your head to be slightly lower than that height, not at the even or higher for certain. So you have more arch on the side. So fuss with your block overhead. If your arm is not comfortable with this idea, with the block overhead, then place the arm down besides you or behind you. And then begin the balancing of opposing reaches of the limbs. You really feel how this opposite reach starts dynamic, and then part of this practice right now is getting the body to restore, but also recover from its challenges with the respiratory system. So instead of over too much intake or strong breathing patterns, keep it casual, focus on the structure of the body to deliver that circulation. Right? Enhance that flow of lymph. So we want to stimulate that, and today we'll be doing some of that with our inversions. Right? So draining the fluid, even in the lungs, any buildup. So focus on letting your head, even though that's not a heavy focus, resting your head, your eyes into your blanket. Maybe not your eyes, but the bulk of your head. Feel the lift of the ribs with your breath. And maybe the digestive tract reacts to these types of poses, you might notice. And then find ultimately a little more comfort. So that might be the upper arm lowers down or is beside you. So that you find that you're comfortable. It might be you tuck your head in slightly towards your shoulder. Now consider the shoulder on the top side, moving that hand to your right hip, and then moving that shoulder a little bit back. Feel the correspondence with the left arm kind of hugging into the bolster. It could only be an experience you could have on your side lying, like side lying pose. Couldn't be a pose you could do standing the same way. So use gravity to help you get traction with breath, with the sandbag, with the supports of the props. So improving the respiratory capacity and recovery, not just with rib focus, but with flexibilities of our spinal column. That's a big part of this, even though it doesn't seem to be your first consideration. So we're going to keep exploring that in the safest way we can. Okay, so as we kind of shift here, we're going to turn to the left, and then I want you to actually let your sand slide off, and we're going to set up here for moving into a Supta Baddha Konasana. So what you'll do is you'll lift up, move the ball or block, and then transfer your bolster. If you have two bolsters, you could have the bottom bolster as the base. It could be an exploration for some of you. Grab onto your belt and your block, and we're going to set up so that we have our belt around our thighs. Now this can be a fast, you can kind of whip into this one. I know some of us will be doing a fast as we can get our belt hooked up, but feel when you do make that loop large enough you can fit into it, right? Start with a largish overhead, okay? And then when you set your feet, you're going to be in front of your bolster right now, but set your feet into the belt. You know, part of this is getting kind of comfortable with these props. It's like you get used to learning how to get around things with them. So when I'm here, I'm actually going to push my feet forward so it's very tense on my thighs, like it's restrictive. This is it, I can't get out, right? So I want you to get a feeling of that, and then you're actually working in this pose to lift the diaphragm up off the abdominal organs, right? We're going to actually be moving back this way. So when you're sitting in front of your bolster, that's tilted up on some blankets, or it's another bolster, whichever. Blankets can sometimes be easier to balance another bolster on because they're smushable, okay? So I'm going to tighten up this belt, and I'm going to pull it in so my inner thighs, this groin lymph can flush. So I'll add a block under each of them, and as I tighten up the belt, get the belt close to the very lower back around, so it scoops around, feels like it's the very top of the box. Now when you're here, can you move your knees open, okay? Now as you put your hands on your bolster and start to guide yourself back, you could do a couple things with the sandbag. You could have it on your feet, you could have it on your ribs. You can have it nowhere. You can just let the pose be simply a realm of, I'm going to emphasize that lift of the diaphragm. You know, it's not kind of sloping with gravity. It's going with gravity downwards, but not the normal downward kind of prolapse, right? It's the opposite here. So try to push into your belt. Feel the belt on the inner thigh texture, nothing strenuous. And then when you move your arms overhead, feel where you selectively can reach even in both of them. And it's not really the arms that you're reaching, it's the rib cage, huh? So you gotta think of what's the bulkiest land in your body right now. Well, the arms are spacious as much as the ribs, but the ribs want that space. They don't get it when they walk around and hunker down. So use the practice to lift out of that hunkering experience. Interlace your fingers and turn your palms to the back of the space. Turn the hands back. So the hands are inside out. Try to stretch your fingers a little bit. If they're not super supple, like your hands, they're supple one way, they're not supple this direction, work with that connection into your wrist, stretch it. Even if you need to take away this idea of interlace and push and get your hand around your wrist and stretch your wrist, feel the hands inside out for a few more moments. If you have sand on the ribs, let it be. If you need to shift it off, take it away. Now, as we move our arms out, relax the shoulders. So the hands are down besides your body, right into your body so that you can feel the ribs lift. Some of you have had plenty of yoga experience of posture shapes. And this arm position is like fish pose, right? So I have my arms down besides me. Although the palms are open, right? I am trying to put my elbows down and lift up my ribs. Right, so you might find that the bolster support is just enough, right? You can always have a little more height, but it's okay. Now with the work in the diaphragm and the actual organs, we're going to unbuckle the belt, okay? And I'm going to have you slide that belt off your feet and actually bring your left foot down, put down that bottom of the foot, and then right hand, I would use the hands, both of them, to push into the floor, and then lift up the right leg and cross it to the left knee. You might have to slide your pelvis a little downward so that you can negotiate that traction. And then put in either a ball or a block besides your left thigh, so it's right outside thigh. Lean into it and hold the right knee with your left hand. Yeah, just give it a hold. Feel the right hip. Yeah, if things are feeling a little stiff or kind of stuffy, right? That could be occurring. Be gentle with how you persuade that tension out. Part of it's letting the tension leave and then having some space internally. Post-pose. Spaciousness post-pose. Don't postpone the posing. I'm trying to keep it kind of under the radar of intensity, so I'm not putting my arm back and trying to really over stress my ribs right now. I just did some rib work. I'll let this go into the hip for a bit. Now isolate kind of the seeds of your brain to your right hip. Like, this is my right hip, and by golly, I'm feeling it. feeling around the buttock. Maybe you're gonna feel underpinnings of the thigh muscle, right? You might massage it a little bit, like you're grabbing a hold at the side of the thigh, pulling it a little towards you, kind of jostle the tissues. Right? So you kind of hold them and jostle them. It's not the same with when you're doing that, but it is helpful, right? It's pretty good. Now, when I switch, what I'm gonna have you do is when you take the ball, if you have a ball, I want you to massage the right glute now. So you're gonna uncross, bring the hips up to bridge, then sit on the ball with your ball under your right buttock and massage a little side to side. Actually be deep with it, let the weight of your body kind of crush that ball, smush it, and use the weight distribution side to side. If you don't have a ball, windshield wiper the knees side to side. Okay, so everybody has a good option. Just make sure the blocks are not too much in your way there, so your knees can actually squish. Okay. So now those with the ball, we're going to move it over to the outside of the right thigh. Those are the block over to the right outer hip, right up top of the thigh. Left foot crosses to the right knee. And then I'm going to use that object, whether it's the block or the ball, and it's very high up on the exterior thigh, the greater trochanter, the greatest trochanter in your house right now. You're going to lean into it and try to swish it. Play with how close that ball can get in. Now, if I put it too close, actually parts of my back kind of peel up. And it's almost starting to pull my buttock up. So you want to find where you will get a hip stretch. Right, it's going to get into this left hip. So I want that buttock to be the right cheek to be on the floor. Left cheek is up. So hold on to that left knee, and I would play with if your knee pushes away, if your knee is drawn in, you know, kind of let that creak around. Right, you might feel some creakiness in there. And as you let that creak around, take a still position for a bit. See if you can hold it and really center on that ball like your body weight. And your ability to organize your body weight is part of this. That's kind of life, right? Organizing how you move your body weight around. That's habit, that's posture. Organizing how I move my body weight. That's my first thought when I wake up. And now where the hip is promoted the most, really narrow in your brain, right, into that scanning that left hip. So I might pull the knee a little deeper and then let my buttock, almost like I'm trying to move it away. It's so subtle, right, when you hold a knee and you're working that outer line of tissue, but it can be very deep. Now those with the ball, right? You're gonna bring the ball to the left buttock, but you're just stretching. The whole idea is that you pin and stretch it, and then you massage it, okay? So there's no rule, right? Your foot doesn't have to be on the floor. Probably one foot has to be down. But you might kind of swing around, so your whole commitment is into massaging around this left glute. Glute medius, you know, it's going to be central and upper part of the buttock is probably where you're going to feel the most rewards that come back. But that's gratification and feeling like you did something, you really notice the actual part of it, pressure. So anything goes, right? Maybe you don't have to focus on where it's felt the most, just massage it. Massage and things will get better. Okay, so trace that path of circulation, those ball free, you're windshield wipering, and then you're gonna start to center after about 5 of those, at 5, right? You're gonna stop and let the knees set together, okay? So start to get the motion of massaging the hip out of your system. And then we're going to all arrive so that the ball is on the side and that we're starting to shift over to side sage with the right hip down. So I'm flipping my body, right? It's how I move my body weight around my house, and right now in my yoga socks. So as I lean into it, remember the help with your block overhead is not required. It's just an idea for the arm. So I'm going to center and I'll take my ball, thank you. I certainly want the sandbag. So those are two bolsters, get ready. Those with one, we're ready to go. And we're going to lengthen that left side. So go fully through the reach and explore the range of your ribs. If it sucks the life out of your spine and it's uncomfortable in your spinal column, like you feel the soft tissue along the spine achy, it's too much, right? So you want to find the places that you probably have more range than you know. We may be overworking our back tension, so feel where it is in your buttock muscle, where that is toned. That should not feel like a loose caboose. It should feel like it is primed in this position. It's pretty toned, glued, right? It's like when if you do weight work and you have like a ankle weight, this may go back in time, but you know, like you put that weight on around your ankle and you push it back and curl the heel up, that kind of thing. That's really what this is, this pattern. With the sandbag, it's kind of old school. But the sand's on the hip or the ribs, and then go into the pose. Let's go in. So we have our arm overhead and our waist lengthening. Head is back and resting. Yeah. Feel where your right thigh draws up towards the bolster. Let your bones get kind of carried away till they feel like there is a lot of separation. There's so much separation going on. You might have separation anxiety coming up, but feel where, if you're working with yourself so much right now, what will allow you to get a little more flexibility in your spine. That's something to think of for your breathing muscles. That's, I think, the missing conversation is the spine flexibility. It's interconnected with the ribs, the thoracic vertebrae. Okay, now I may look a little bit open at the upper arm space, so you have the choice. You could kind of nestle in with your head, left arm is down or close to your right arm, you choose. But as we elongate this period of the pose, sink in, breathe, find where you're comfortable. Keep it simple. Now let's explore our lane of travel to move out and depart. So before we're departing, we have the upper arm come back down, and then this whole core chamber. It's like this channel of energy is, some of it feels kind of like a tube, some feels like this, this rib cage. There's all these different visuals that everyone works with. So keep it the simplified version of my left knee draws in, your left knee draws to your right knee. You roll into a ball to the right, And then as you start to come up, I want you to move your props kind of casually, push the bolster away. Your focus really is going to be to get on hands and knees. So take some time to get your blanket underneath the middle of your mat, and sitting on it might be helpful for you initially. And then that extra blanket is off to the side. We'll use them all again, but right now we're gonna go kind of bare with the props. A bear prop. Okay, so knees and rib cage connecting to hand structure. So my hands are open and I'm in a tabletop. So take the table position right now where the knees have enough space that you almost get a feel like if I'm in all fours position, if I was standing on my knees, it would be a different amount of traction, but when I'm actually in my hands, I'm capable of letting the back of the pelvis open. So take cat pose. Let's go in. We're going to spine flex and bring the chin towards the chest. Okay, now feel and kind of witness when you move out of that shape of cat. Move your brain forward, feel the hands open, and try to go as slow in time as you can. You're going to move your hips back. You can barely see you moving. You're going so slow. You're arching your spine. Heart motions forward. Okay, and then hollow the belly. Now when you're hollowing, are you grabbing in your guts and kind of sucking in? Or can you actually direct your toes under, like they're grabbing the floor, and you're moving through your spinal column, all the way through the rib column, into the shoulder blades, chin to chest. Or some people think of it as chest to chin, I know, but feel these alternating patterns, but I encourage you to delight in the focus of the cat pose right now. Really feel that, how you can revel in cat. So the arch of the spine is essential to come out, but when you move into cat, feel what co-contracts in your back, what you're spreading in the back, what you're contracting in your stomach. And then when you come back this next time, lift up your knees, stretch back into your heels, and before you know it, you're in a dog pose just about, and press back into your heels so that the heel bones touch towards the floor, if not on the floor. Hands are in a wide stance. You know, feeling when the head goes below the heart. And don't exhaust yourself, so if you start to feel that there's too much of that, then just come back down and center back to child's pose anytime. So now I want us to move our brain forward, keep the arms supercharged so they're straight, brain forward into an upright push-up position. The goal today is not to exhaust you, but to get some spine focus, some spine strength. So when you lower down that right knee to the blanket, I want you to lift up that left leg. It's pretty simple. And then feel when you lift that leg, you're going to turn the left hip open, place the foot on the floor, and stretch the left arm up. If your wrist is tired on that right hand, if it's too much, what you might do is put a block flat. You could try with your hand on the block. Sometimes it is actually helpful. Or you can put your elbow on that block, right? And that's a bit challenging, right? It's a little more stretch in your waist. So it's probably worthy of just trying things out because you never know. And it's just a different shape to be in right now than you have been. You're in different shape. Kind of shape am I in? All right, send the left arm over the side of the face, reach. Elbow down or hand on block. Okay. If you're on the elbow, it's hard to get back up. It does seem to kind of hold you there. Now we've got reach of the torso. Oh, it's a big one. Okay, now as you come down, if you're on the elbow and the block, you can stay longer because the wrist is not involved, that's for certain. Come back down, and then I want you to switch the sides. So keep it simple. Left knee down, right leg back, okay? Prepare, so when that right okay, you're back into the right with circulation down, or the hand on the block, or the elbow on the block. Pivot that right foot. Okay, so what happens is your buttock pushes out. Yeah, pardon me, my back is towards you. Okay, so when I turn, my right hip is reaching, well, actually, it doesn't really feel like it's reaching much, but the slant angle, I want to work with that right arm opening and then stretching over the side of the face. Yeah. If you feel bigger when you use the block, like just a little more bold, you might try it. I like to have the height. It just brings the floor up. It's a slight balance challenge. Both of these are actually all three, right? Hand on floor, hand on block, elbow on block. Now continue to extend it and stay in that for a few more moments. Really try to keep the side motion right through your right side, but lengthen. It's part muscular, part cardiovascular, just to hold this one, okay? Now, as that right hand lowers down, you're going to need a couple blocks. So you're going to grab blocks. You can be on your hands and knees or still be in the first shape that you were just in here. And step the right foot between. And then as you lift up your back, actually, let's stay on the blanket for a minute. Let's lean down so our left thigh is stretching the quadricep. Scoot the blocks in quite close so you feel the arch through the leg. The right knee is above the ankle. It's not over the toes at all. Look at your lines of energy through your right knee above your ankle. The front of that left thigh lengthens. Yeah, if the body feels kind of, achy or, dealing with some stuff here going on in the air, see if you can work with kind of letting that ache kind of drain out, especially in these limpy spaces, right? Through the groin, it kind of starts to seep into this quad space. Your back knee doesn't have to be crushing into the blanket if that hurts you. You could hook your toes under and lift up the knee and stretch back into the heel. It doesn't make it easier, but it doesn't push down the bone, huh? So as that leg is low, we'll take a few more moments here. I want you to actually come into a reverse lunge, so toes up, right foot. Stretch the back of that right leg, bring the hands out wide on the blocks, so the blocks are at mid to low height. If they're at level 1, height, low, you might enjoy that stretch into your hamstring. But feel if you can suck up the kneecap, kind of actually suck up the quad. Draw up the kneecap on the right thigh. Don't suck up your kneecap. So feel where your sitting bone is reaching back. It's a little perplexing on sitting bone to sitting bone, isn't it, on this one? Okay, now raising to the back of this right leg, we're going to work forward. Now, part of this leg stretching work we're doing today, lift the back knee, stretch the left heel to the floor, is about spine flexibility, okay? So one benefit of having legs, having extremities, right, is it's giving that spine some capacity for a greater range of motion, right? That's really key. It's nice to have limbs. So limb on, okay, hands extremity, right, onto blocks. I'm gonna have you be aware of your back foot, so keep that back foot parallel as possible. If the foot turns out a little bit, right, and the heel draws a little in, that's fine, okay? Straight legs. Okay, now when I'm lengthening in my back muscles of my legs, I'm gonna keep the bottom of that right foot, feels like it's kind of pressing down, but my left foot feels the most contact. It's a challenge, right? So feel the orientation of both feet. And then let's pivot left. So we're gonna turn to our left side, hands on those blocks clearly, feet are wide, and take them out as far as they could go. But this time today, what you're gonna do is have your feet parallel, nothing with a real turned in foot. I mean, if your foot has a tiny bit of turnout, like you can see it's a little bit pivoting, go back to the parallel as well as you can, but not trying to turn them in excessively. So feel the arch from the sitting bones, and then it cascades down into the lumbar spine. So what we'll take is the blocks are going to first start going farther forward, so you're in a wide downward dog. And then lower the chest down, head between the arms, center the reach through the arms. Drop the kneecaps, right? So thigh bones try to pull up. Drop the kneecaps. Thighs go back, arms go forward. Bend your knees, slide your blocks in. If you have a blanket there, I want you to just scoot a little bit back and maybe bring it between, so it's right in the center. One of your goals is to bring the crown of your head to the blanket, okay? So you might be adding a block on top of the blanket, but what you'll do is slide the blocks back to their first level. Hands are between the feet and crown of the head down, okay? So this is a clear inversion, right? It's very inverted. It's really turning the head so it's below the heart. So if you're grappling for this one, if it's tough, put your block on top of your blanket, okay? And hold onto your legs. Try to bring your crown down, okay? If it's easy for you to get your hands on the floor and your head down, work with those moving, trying to feel your hands like the fingers are wide and they're actually pressed down, but your elbows are back, but your hands are not sliding back. You're trying to hold your posture to keep your shoulders toned. Like if you were thinking about coming up into a handstand, your hands would be ready. Right? So you have to have your elbows back, your hands open. I know, the things we do to explore, huh? Bend your knees. Hold on to the sides of the legs, low legs down towards the ankles. Hold, hands both holding those parts, elbows wide and forwards. Now as we come up, we're going to take our blanket, make sure it's center of our mat, and then I want you to turn back to your front right foot. I think this is identified as the front foot for this part of the practice, and step the left foot to it, okay? Feel your body in Uttanasana, Utta, okay? So, knees are bending, my feet are about hips distance. I'm going to come up into fierce pose, chair pose, Uttanasana. So from Utta to Uttta, okay? Now back to Utta, so we go forward, head down, okay? Work the lungs, come back up to Uttta, so chair pose, like you're sitting back in a chair. Knees have to feel like they go forward, buttocks are toned. And then come back to forward bend. And get a feel of your belly moving to your thighs, your head moving towards the legs, your spine stretching. Separate the blocks, hold your elbows, and use the hands on the elbows to create traction for your shoulders and your spine. But most importantly, let the weight of your head stretch the spine. Breathe. Final short set of standing stuff here. So get a feel of where the weight is in your heels. If any of these poses seem too much, you can always come down, hands, knees, child's pose. Be sure that the hold of the elbows is strong enough that you have traction in your sleeves. So if you feel that they're kind of peeling. Now as the knees soften, feel the back round. Kind of let this scoop around to the buttocks. It's nice to feel some of the parts really lengthen with just how you can put your body into shapes. I mean, we can take care of ourselves here. So as we have our blocks besides our feet, we're going to step back into our right foot, and then this time we'll go from the standing shape first, the upper higher leg position. So right heel stretches back and the left foot parallel. Motion the right heel bone down. Really feel into that heel. Right, we're going for straight leg patterns. Maybe your back leg is poker straight. I want you to try to get that with the right leg. That's important. The left leg does not have to be that. There might be a micro bend. Your torso might meet your left thigh. Just maybe. But the right calf really feels that circulation. Yeah, the blocks could be higher, they could be lower. If you feel that going up a notch is helpful for your back muscles, you know, you'll feel a little more strength in the back this way than if you're dropping forward, right? That's a little more of the suppleness. This kind of balances the two. So find what's balancing for you. It's like your life project. Life project. Now, space out the legs further and deeper. So we're going to bend the left knee, and I want you to make way to your lunge, so the right knee down, and then keep that support and the force. Let the left foot, the force of the right heel under the knee be with you. So I'm going to scoot my left foot forwards. Keep the knee moving. Well, I don't want it to go past the ankle, but the top of the back thigh, and then perhaps you lift up the heart. Center your attention in through the spine, up to the brain. Now, if your back leg is down on the knee, take a moment to hook the toes under. Okay, so we're going to come to that reverse lunge. I want you to start to slide your bolster in. So your flat bolster is going to go in underneath that left leg, okay? And then I take the blocks if you could bring hands to the floor, one brain thinking about these things. So you might just like to go as deep as you can in your poses because you don't know when you're going to do that again, but consider the balancing of your muscles, right? So if I have my blocks, you know, just to have them under my hands, I have to kind of recreate balance and symmetry in the back muscles of my arms, you know, versus kind of dropping. So,
you know, you have to kind of find the quality of a reaction to your props and how the bones center, that the toes really flex on that left foot so you feel it back. You really feel the foot back. And then you can pull on it, so you can pull on the ball of the foot. That's always a happy calf feeling. Now we're going to come into pigeon. Okay, so I'm excited for this one today. So I want you to shift your leg. So I'm going to move my left foot toe, heel to the right. Now, if I put my blocks kind of in the center, you almost feel like you can flop into it. But cruise the belly button forward, like that's an aiming place. And let the top of the back thigh ease into the arms, like let your body lean, let your body go, shift down, feel into that left hip. Sense the circulation through your buttock. Probably feels like a good stretch in the hip joint right now. Okay, so feel that we're trying to stretch muscles and hydrate the tissue. So I would say for today's pattern, we're going to go farther down versus trying to get up like a arch spine. So if you can go farther down, you have that other blanket, or you have, you want your blocks under your elbows, so you're going to go a little bit lower than that and bring your hands to make a pillow for your head. It'll likely feel pretty deep, right, into your hip, don't you think? It's a pretty deep hip stretch if you're low. And the blanket addition might be nice for some of us under our elbows. So pick up your props if you need some more. Yeah, feel the already obvious left hip open, okay? And then we're gonna let our weight lean over to that left thigh. Now, take this in strides. Like you can't step into your foot right now. Like you couldn't launch into your bottom of your foot. But what you're launching through is the back, right, the buttock, and then it kind of sears into the leg a little bit here. Okay, so I want this left back quadrant of my waist to stay open. Okay, we'll see if this works. So this side's going to try to stay open. I know all of us ever have experience with these patterns. And you're at home, so you might flop over, you might flop up, it just depends. But you're going to lean to your left buttock like you're trying to push it over to your bolster. And then when you come up, I want you to stretch your right leg out and actually get a ball or block under that left leg. Okay? Grab a sandbag, lift it up to your left thigh. Place it as high on the thigh as it'll go. Okay? Upper thigh. And then when you reach down to your right foot, get a belt under the foot, hook on the foot, and then hold it with the right hand and go back to that left side. Well, you're not going back to pigeon, but this is that quadrant we're back into. So now we're just starting to lift up into the ribs, lift up into the ribs, feel the ribs in motion. Try to keep that lift of the core body. Notice if things feel like they drain out. Maybe some of these shapes are getting a little bit more comfortable to pursue because they're not as stiff, but you could still feel tightening. So left arm behind down to the right leg. Actually, the brain turns down towards that right leg. Now as you slide your hand closer to the top of that right thigh with the hand on the belt, we're going to move our belt up. Well, move our leg up. I guess the belt's not what moves up, but the belt holding the foot takes it up. So I'm going to lift up my belt, my foot, my belted foot. Okay. Your beautiful belted foot is in front of you now. Okay. So use this hold, like you want to get a fairly substantial reach with your arms, but I'm going to keep it neutral in my spine. So I'm not going to overly stretch it like I'm trying to hold my foot with my hands. Now let's say you can. Let's say your foot holder, you can do that easily. Rather than pushing this, right, it kind of presses in my hip flexor is really contracted at that point. Grippy. So what I want you to aim for on this one today is actually to take the belt together, hold the belt with your left hand, and stretch turning to the right. Right over his back like you got your thumb up, reaching it towards the back. Yeah, try to get that thumb up. So turn to the right. Come back forward, hold the belt, breathe, exhale, bend the knee, place the foot, cross the right foot in front of the left shin, take the sand over to the right thigh, so you're in what's called Sukhasana, easy pose, so cross-legged stance. So when I'm seated here and I lean forward, I do want to get a feeling that I'm trying to lift the diaphragm so at the base of that centerpiece of the chest at the base of the heart, that attachment, that actual respiratory muscle, right, its correspondence with my upper lumbars is kind of interesting. So I want you to work on keeping that inner lift, even as you tilt forward. So my hands can hold the backs of my bolster when I tip. It might be a little easy versus putting your hands on the floor, but consider the position of your ribs, your lungs. Easy is okay. I still feel it in my very inner thigh, right leg going. But this is where you'll feel it. So what we'll do is give about 4 more breaths here. So I'm upright, tilting, just to adjust into my hip. The subtleties, or pretend. Now we're going to take the left leg back. Okay, so I'm going to move the ball aside. My right knee bends. I've got the sand on it. It's kind of a weighted experience. I'm going to take it off and then take the belt off, take the left leg back. Okay, and get that feeling through this pigeon pose on the right leg. Okay, remember the blocks could be under your hands or your elbows, your blanket could be there. And I'm trying to encourage you to go low with the arms. So whether they're on blocks or the floor or blanket, you're tilted forwards. Yeah, feel the top of that back thigh face down. Feel the toes relaxed. You know, noticing the lumbar arch, feeling where there's the curve in that lower back frame. And that every time we move, our breath is kind of that inner movement, sometimes subtly felt, sometimes not even acknowledged.
It's moving the ribs, it's moving the spine. So maybe have a meditation on the movement of the breath in those zones, spine, ribs, maybe around the upper rib cage, you can feel that. Now, timing this pretty even with the left side, we'll bring our hands back in towards the right leg. And when we have that feeling of that right buttock, when you swing your left leg out, position your thigh muscles so that you might have a ball under your right leg or a block. Stand up, belt underfoot, belt up under the left foot. Press it out into the belt. Feel where there's resistance, and then turn to your right. Right? Hold on and bend and lean. Yeah. And play with the association of your left side, your right side, kind of the medial texture in the sides of your body. Noticing something that's different than just a second ago in your structure, that when you lean into it, right, you get a feeling of that persuasion of the obvious structure, but also feel your breath pace and its rhythm. If you're kind of sucking it in, if you can let it just manipulate at its own pace, right? Noticing how you're with your breath is just something to recognize right now. It's involuntary, right? It's an involuntary experience, but you can voluntarily slow, comfort yourself with the right amount of breath pace. Now the right arm is behind you. You're turning your brain towards your left leg. Even if the left foot is pushing into your belt, feel the knee, right? Notice around the knee if those muscles are turning in or if they're neutral. Really try to push into that foot, push into the belt, and then feel that correspondence into the right of the waistline. Right, I'm going to move my leg forwards, or my belt, whichever. If I didn't have a leg, I wouldn't be able to get the belt forward for this position. So the leg is bringing the belt to life. Your props love having you. Okay. Or you love having props, one or the other. So when you pull on the belt, do you pull in or are you like pulling up, right? So the focus right now is pulling in towards you. So if your flexibility is so great that you are closer to your foot with your hands, so be it. My focus is feeling kind of this inner, my inner lift, right? So if I yank on my leg, do all these types of larger abilities, kind of gross motor, right? Look at that. I'm going to try to go more subtlety and feel what I can't see, right? But I know when I'm sitting upright, I feel my core response. Really careful of your hip flexor though, this left front thigh. If it is getting bound up, what you might do is try bending the knee a little bit and then work from the buttock, work from the glute. Take the belt sides together, hold with the right hand, bring the left arm back, okay? Try to lift up, and if that left foot pushes to the front of your space, the right
left arm open. Any breaks that you need, right? You don't have to manage through every little piece of this, so be sure to take those breaks if you need them. Now, when my left arm comes down and then I join with my right to the front, I'm going to lower the foot, take the belt off, but quickly move the left knee open and stack on some sand on that hip top where I was just working with flexor a bit, okay? So we've got a sand, maybe you keep your ball under your knee, left foot forward or right, I'm gonna lean forward. You certainly could go farther forward on your ball, on your blocks, right? You could take your blocks up, one or two, lift them up so you have support. Tuck your left foot in a little closer. That is going to define the position. Okay, so if you take it like straight forward, find what works for the groins. I'm going to start to tap into the inner legs because that's the fluid that we're trying to drain that excess. So I want you to try to get that sensation of inner thigh stretch. Now when we're leaning forward and we feel the managing arch, right? Managing our spine motion. Now that our spine has moved in for quite a while now into different frames, luckily we did some standing shapes that were able to really branch the spine through both legs, moving out from the spine, so each right and left side of the back. Think of the leg as the right or the left side of the back, stretching forwards. So now we're going to stretch upside downwards. That's an actual turn, upside downward stretching. But we're going to take our blocks out, and then as you unwind on this one, okay, what you'll do is take the legs, uncross, and you might sit in a Dandasana type of pose, like a staff pose, and shake out the legs. When I come back completely onto my bolster with my back of my pelvis, I'm going to move my blanket a tad back. And then as I lower down and I lift up my legs, what I'm going to do is grab my belt and buckle up to make a loop, okay? So, as you take advantage of the belt support now, get a full loop, okay, full loop. So make that loop wide, place it up to your feet, push out, and then as you push out with your feet, I want you to get the feeling, the feet feeling, that the pressure out has a little bit of your heels. Okay. Keep them in the perspective or the memory of when we were standing on our feet and our feet were in that wide stance, how the legs reacted there. Now they're basically draining, right? So I have my feet open, legs draining, arms open, okay? Let the back of the shoulders center. Feel the position of the legs wide. Try for a moment to feel the thighs almost turn out. I know it's obvious that they're externally rotated, the feet are open, but feel where the knees are, and if they're kind of turning in, naturally, feel the knees turn out a little bit and feel that reflection up into the inner thighs. Bend your knees and then reach up to the part of the belt closest to you. So you're in happy baby pose. Slide your feet straight up. Take that left leg out of the belt and hold your belt overhead. You can bring your hands together in a palm prayer position with the hands overhead. But the
experience is lengthening of the hamstring, calf, all the way to the calf. If the belt feels like it's about ready to slip off your foot, adjust your foot. See if you can pivot the foot. You might have to actually slide it down to the arch or below. Keep it really simple. Now, we're not going to brain float. The reason being we're focusing on lymph drainage. We've been doing a little bit more science with it. Not that that's not science, but if you need to brain float because it helps your neck traction, this would be a moment to add that in. Right, placing the belt to the occipital bone, and then letting your head be held in the belt up to you. Now, if we're in the leg lengthening stage, press into the left heel. Try to kind of scrub the floor with your left heel. Push, push. As if there was a belt under that left foot that you were creating resistance along. Now, as we change sides, or if you take the belt off the back of your head, you're going to switch sides, left foot into the belt, just simply switch it out, and then manage that reach of the left leg. Feel the differences, right? You might notice it's not necessarily just a leg feeling, but it could be more than that on the second side. Could be different. Your rear probably feels like it's almost on the other side of the bolster, right? So it's quite a reach. You're just using the bolster to give yourself some more space, right? Spaciousness. Now with that reach, if your belt is behind your head for you brain floaters, give that some significant supportive influence with the belt for your neck. And for those of us with the leg perspective, fully, just the leg, not the neck, we want to push down through the right heel and get that stretch focus in that left side of your spine, although it appears to be your leg. Now, as your right foot slides in, you're going to bring that foot up, and we'll slide the belt down, so it's at the back of our legs, and you're going to buckle it up, tighten up the belt. That's what you're doing. And so it's, you know, it's around the legs. It's not necessarily really tight, but it's there, so it's not falling down to your buttocks. And then get your sands, and depending on how you want to use the sand support, you're going to make sure it's flat enough, and then lift it over to your soles and push up. Right, so your aim would be up, but the direction might feel forwards. Okay, so I'm going to grip up my legs so my belt is high up on the thighs. Yep, it should feel like it's closing the gap here so that external rotation is minimal. And then just feel how you flex your feet, feel how you circulate into your calves, feel how the back of the pelvis is pressing into the bolster. Now, arms are going to go out to the sides today, so they're more at that T shape, straight open to the shape of the letter T. And then when the shoulders are receptive, you might feel them not necessarily passive, but like they're almost kind of hugging down to the floor. Let them go. Try to let the shoulder passageway stretch open to your arms. Giving yourself a big hug might be a useful technique to really feel that upper back and the shoulder spread open. Yeah, I've seen some people use blocks for this, under the arms, so everything kind of spreads out. The only challenge is that might actually tighten parts of the shoulder, so this is a very organic way to go with it, but you could add a block if you have a shoulder issue one side more than the other. It might actually be very useful. So with those individual differences, find what works for you now and go into the pose, go into the feeling of the pose, Viparita Karani, the circumstances you're under with breathing. Feel the belly gradually move and not overdoing it. Just let it happen comfortably. Soak it up. Now, before you leave the shape, I want you to take a moment to really flex your feet. Really keep the flex of the feet. Really get those calves. So it's as if draining is everything. Everything possible right now is to drain it out. Slowing down the leg. And now we're moving to the lungs, right? We're going to do a twist. So what you're going to do is bend the knees, unbuckle the belt. I want you to take this twist today. We're going to do this a little different than maybe in the last few months. It's been months anyway. So you're going to use your sand and you're going to stay in your bolster. So it's a little deeper in your lung. So when you move, twisted lung. Okay. You're going to move your knees right. You're going to have a block over there on the right side. My block's mid-height. And then I'm going to put my sand across the outer left thigh. Not necessarily does it have to be all the way down towards the knee. Now your knees aren't going to be stacked right now, right? Because of your pelvis, the connection to the bolster, all those things. Now you might endeavor to get them closer together. That's good. But I would be accepting of where I'm at. Like, this is fine. My emphasis is opening my left arm and really working my ribs, the tissues into the lungs, so deeper, denser into the ribs. So make sure it feels like it's rather impactful here. So if the knees are shaky, if your legs are jittery in this one, you might take your sand off and try it. You might cross your left leg over the right leg and try this too. You can work both. I'm just keeping it very balanced right for my joints, so it's no crossing of the legs right now, but you could. Okay, so feeling the circulation trace its path through the side. It's so simple, but very specific directionally. Now we're going to switch sides, but we're doing a little bit of time management here too. So I want to use the best that we can with our props that we have right there, here and now, and let the circulation in the muscular system and the respiratory system to get the most out of this upside downness. So when I turn to my left with my knees over to the left side, they're twisting over to the left so my ribs twist. If I try to talk with a little bit of speed, I get a little bit tired with that. So I know it's working in my lung tissue, or that I'm kind of tired. My lungs are tired, one or the other. So if my legs are stacked as well as I can stack them, go for sensation for that exterior right hip. Stretch open the right arm, turn your head to the right. Okay. Feel the head turn. Now, do the ribs go left or the ribs go right? The thick back ribs are trying to go right. That's really challenging in this one. So just to remember, when you're trying to move your thick back ribs, you also want to move your head, turn your head a little bit. It's like every part of you could be helpful for many things that you might not consider to add to your support network. So feel the knees left. Now I'm going to move my block a little farther to the left so I can get a greater stretch. Feels really nice. To take these final moments to get that great stretch. Feel where the legs are stacked. Feel where the spine has turned. And now as we slide that sand aside, you're going to bring your knees in and to your chest and then hands on bolster. Push the bolster forward and be sensitive at the very tail end, your tailbone end. Be sensitive to how that falls, right? And it's down. And my feet are going to push the bolster away enough that my feet are on the floor. I'm going to reach my hands to my heels, and I'm not going to grab onto the heels for dear life, but I know they're close and they're about hips distance. And then feel your hands on the tops of your thighs, right at the thigh lids. Push into the thighs so that the actual skin there stretches and lift your buttocks up, okay? Whatever we want to call these pose shapes, there's lots of names we could start to talk through, but let's keep the focus on the buttock, right? So you feel the buttock as kind of like a beam, right? It's a very toned beam. Not beam, but beam, okay? So lift your B beam. And then as you're lifting up, the thigh lids lift, 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 lift. Try to get them as high as they'll go with the strength of your glutes, your buttocks. Hands on floor, hands on deck. Shoulders down, lift, draining. Really any of the fluid excess in the lungs, right? So we have this lift, breathe. Hips can't get any higher than this. Lift up the heels and then lower the spine down. The higher they could get would be a chair shoulder stand, right? With timing, with getting it for time. So hook onto the back of your legs, roll to the side to come up or roll straight forward and up. And then let's get into a final shape. So you're going to choose from a couple. You can take legs up the wall with a bolster or blanket under your pelvis. So you get a little more inversion. You can take legs up the bolster bench, right? So I have my bolster up on 2 blocks of their second height. And then I have 2 blankets on top, okay? You can have a sandbag under your head if you want it, or another towel you might have around, or a little pillow. You can also take chair shoulder stand if you're proficient in that. I won't do a tutorial for it today, but I do have a couple of those though on YouTube. There's 2 different shoulder stand ones. So, but for now, you're going to choose one of the 3. If you're doing chair shoulder stand, be sure that you have, you might put a blanket on the back band of the chair, the back rung, or the back bar is what I'm trying to get to. So you have something comfortable to put your feet on. So when you come up onto bolster bench, okay, you're going to bring your legs up, or Stonehenge. You're going to lower down. Sand could be on the shins, sand could be on the belly, or the sand could be on the ribs or under head, right? You could also put your sand under the back of the pelvis. It's just trying to get it even, which can be a little tough. But I have it kind of on the lower back of my pelvis, so it feels like it's really under the eyebrows of the buttocks, okay? And then I can let the legs really drain out. There's a little more of that drainage going on. So my legs are separated, comfortably so. I have my arms low, contained into me. and the shoulders centered back. So choose one of these pose options. You can also create your own, okay? If I don't have anything under my head, I'm gonna have a little more work to do to nestle the back of my neck, comfortably feel the arch of my neck into the cervical vertebrae. You can always have a towel under your head for this. I recommend that might be the best course for being supported. And then as you create the balance of your breath in, feel the belly fill. And then as you exhale, feel the belly draw towards the spine. Inhale, belly fill. Exhale towards the spine. Feel the alternating expansion and contraction. Now, with that simple process of exchanging the oxygen content, the respiratory waste leaving the body, feel the habits of the shoulders. Now, if you're in the chair shoulder stand, you probably give yourself an extra couple moments on that one today for that drainage of the legs, right? The fluid in the legs and then the lungs. And then those of us on our back in this simple position, we can put our hands that are touching above the belly button so we feel that space above. If you're in the chair shoulder stand, you're going to start to bring your feet together, your knees out in Baddha Konasana, and we'll join there too. And that's why having that blanket at the back bar of the chair can be nice so that it's a little softer for your feet. It really does make a little difference. Feel the belly expand and release. Now, if you're at the chair, you're going to bring the knees back in, the feet to the seat, and then start to gradually slide down and move your hands to help you slide back. As your knees are now pointing up, if you're on bolster, you're going to point the knees up and then feel your feet push down. If you have anything under your back, you're going to slide it away, unless it's under your head, and then lower down the traction of the spine. So network that traction for all of us when we guide ourselves through the back, okay? Now, as you start to approach the legs moving in towards the chest, give yourself time if you're in the shoulder stand to get here. No rush. And then taking the moment here when you're clutching the back of the legs, removing any sand that you have attached, rock side to side, hold the kneecaps, and really truly rock side to side. Get motion in your body. Feel like there's quite a bit of entertaining you can do just inside your skin, in your body. Lots of socializing in there from the practice, inner work. Roll to the side. Use your hands to come up. And then as we connect, we can sit on solid surface, we can sit on a bolster, blanket, whatever you can grab a hold, and take a moment to unite our focus, right, in all of our environments. See if we can come together collectively into the arms resting on the lap of the legs and just feeling that sanctuary inside your skin, all the way up as the brain bows down to the heart center. Hands lift up As they rise and you seal the palms together in the space in front of the heart, take a moment to feel maybe the energy in yourself, but also let that strength move it outwards to others. Inhale together. And with an exhalation, bowing into the space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste. Okay. Thank you for joining me there.